Hello, class. Welcome to our discussion about proofreading tips as we're getting ready to edit and revise our essays and the various essay components and drafts. We want to keep these tips in mind. Um, it's a little bit chilly this morning, hence the beanie, and I immediately thought to myself, brr, right? And again, burr is an example of onomatopoeia, the formation of a word from a sound associated with it. And you can use that for rhetorical effect. So as you're proofreading and editing your essays, I always want you to consider your titles. As you know, we're going to vote on who has the best title. And usually the best titles contain some sort of figures of speech. One figure of speech to think about including in your title for rhetorical effect, onomatopoeia. Um, and I have a couple others up here as well, and we'll get to those as we move through the proofreading tips. So remember Halloween words, things like that, boo, words that imitate, resemble, or suggest the sound that they describe. Uh, so our book's proofreading tips, right? When I Googled proofreading tips, a lot of them are similar, right? Our first one in rules of thumb is to make a break between writing and proofreading, right? I'm on page 93 in the 8th edition. So again, take a break, take some time to think about things other than your paper so that when you come back to the paper to proofread it, you're feeling fresh. Um, you want to put a little distance between writing and proofreading it so that you can catch errors you might have overlooked. Um, Search for trouble, right? Second thing, assume that you've made unconscious errors. And that kind of goes with the next guide, know your typical mistakes, right? And if you look here, right, what did you make mistakes with last class? And that's why I always give you audio feedback on your essays and let you know what you need to avoid doing in future essays. So if you had issues with punctuation, specifically commas or colons, or you had issues with sentence structure or citations or the works cited format, make sure that you remember to address the possibility of that same error again so you can avoid repeating it. Proofread for the order in terms of, right, this says proofread backwards. The book says proofread out of order. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be backwards per se, but you might want to read the papers out of order, or I'm sorry, the paragraphs out of order, so that you look at it from a different perspective. You know what you want to say, and the idea is when you put them down on paper, sometimes we put them down in ways that might be awkward, or maybe you didn't use the right word or phrases. So when you read it out of order or backwards, it gives you a different perspective on your writing as opposed to, okay, I know my intro is going to make this point and then body paragraph one. If you start in the middle or you start with the conclusion and go backwards, it might be helpful. Obviously, proofread aloud, read aloud. That's very, very important. So you can hear possible mistakes when you're reading and you read in your head. Again, a lot of times what you see, it might be different from what your idea is, but you know the idea, so as you're reading along you kind of gloss over it, but when you read it aloud you can hear if you made any mistakes. And again, look up anything you're not sure of, especially with works cited format, especially using the dictionary. And you'll notice in almost every video I've got dictionary terms at the top of the page. I'm a big fan of the dictionary, and that's why I brought up some of these figures of speech as we think about our titles. Most of this advice is similar, right? Proofread at the time of the day when you're most alert to spotting errors. Some people are night people, some people are sunshine people, some people are morning people. What time is your brain most alert so that you can be very discerning and discriminating in your thought process? with regard to word choice and sentence structure and punctuation use. Um, This is an interesting hint. Place a ruler under each line as you read. You might find that helpful. But again, reading on a screen, you'll notice I like to highlight things, or I like to run the cursor along, kind of like using your finger back in the day, or a ruler. So you can kind of adapt that for computer proofreading. Now, when I Googled proofreading tips, the first one popped up here from the EDU website, and then this one from dailywritingtips.com. But I really liked a couple of them. Right? Obviously, a lot of them are similar, right? It's nice to have all of these strategies at your disposal, and you know that you can always electronically send things to the Writing Center. And when we give each other feedback on our posts with the paragraphs, you're getting that feedback as well. But you want to watch out for homonyms and watch out for contractions and apostrophes, right? Homonyms are words that sound the same but mean different things. And make sure you're using your apostrophes correctly. Make sure that you're using your contractions. Either using them correctly or just avoid them altogether. In formal writing, it's best to avoid contractions, but if you are going to use them, make sure you're putting the apostrophes in the right place. Remember, with a singular noun ending in S, it's S apostrophe S. If it's a plural noun ending in S, you just put the apostrophe. And as you know, you have your apostrophe punctuation pages to go over if you want to refresh with those rules. And always, if you ever have a question, let me know. But now, when we're getting into the ideas of homonyms, this brings us into title possibilities. So, what are some possible homonyms you could focus on? Well, they are words that have the same spelling or pronunciation, but different meanings and origins, right? Words that may sound the same, right? But simultaneously can have different meanings. And those contribute to puns. A pun is when you exploit the different possible meanings of a word, or the fact that there are words which sound alike but have different meanings. So perhaps, since we are going to vote on who has the best titles, and that person's going to get extra credit towards their Canvas grade, as we like to call them, the panache points, because panache means style. Panache and point both start with the letter P, so you're creating alliteration. So this exercise, I've titled it the panache points, so that I can show you how to use figures of speech in your own phrases and sentences and titles. I've titled this exercise panache points, so it has alliteration, and both words start with P. So you can use alliteration in your titles, you can use homonyms and puns, you can use onomatopoeia, you may find yourself using personification, right? A thing or an abstract idea is represented as a person. The attribution of a personal nature or human characteristics to something non-human. Again, these are all figures of speech that will help give an emphasis in your titles for rhetorical effect. And if anybody wants to look at the figures of speech more specifically, right, in addition to Googling them, I will provide the link for figures of speech from literaryterms.net, and I'll click on alliteration just in case, right, the repetition of letters and sounds, and specifically, right, when it comes at the beginning of words, has a nice effect. Panache, point, right, that rhetorical effect. Hopefully you can use alliteration in your titles, or onomatopoeia, or personification, or puns with homonyms. Hopefully this video you found helpful as you're getting ready to revise and edit and proofread your papers and prepare your title to submit it for the possible panache points. Thanks for listening. Let me know if you have any questions, as always, and until next time.